All right, thank you so much for being with us. Welcome to the stream. I'm Derek Ashong. This is a show that is based upon feedback from you, our audience, and today we've got something very special for you. This is a program that was actually suggested by one of our community members, and we're going to get right to it. Today, young people are risking their lives to leave Eritrea. So why is the government out to stop them? As always, our digital producer, Ahmed Shahab El-Din, is here looking out for your live feedback. Also on the couch today is a very special guest. She's a familiar face to many of you. She's a supermodel, Alekwek. She's joining us for the very first time. Thank you so much for being here. We know that you're actually also an advocate for refugee rights, and you're here for the UN High Commission on Refugees conference. Tell us a little bit about what you're going to be doing there.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. I was really touched when I was asked by U.S. Committee. U.S. Committee for Refugees. I've always been a big advocate since I've experienced, being a refugee at a very young age during the civil war in Southern Sudan, and having to have been in fashion. It's given me a voice to be able to raise awareness in important issues. And of course, refugees have always been dear to my heart, and I know what that feels like. So UNHCR, I've experienced their work, how they really are there firsthand to refugees that don't have a voice, that don't have an outlet, have absolutely nothing, and they really are the voice for the voiceless. And when they had approached me about the Refugee Congress, which is taking place, and all the refugees all across the country can actually not just be spoken on their behalf, but they are going to be speaking and expressing how they feel. I thought, what a wonderful time to definitely come and share my own past story.
Tell us a little bit about what that was like, because I know you left Sudan when you were around, I guess, 9 years old?
When the civil war was going on, definitely I was about 8, 9 years old. And then I ended up fleeing the country to go seek refuge in London at the age of 14.
And did you understand what was happening at that age?
No, not at all. When you have to literally leave your home with nothing, just whatever you can carry, and just thousands of you and your neighbors and just people you don't even know marching, just walking and leaving, going towards the bush. You don't know where you're going, but basically trying to find refuge. As a young person, you have no idea, and you're really quite upset the fact that you're leaving are you getting forced to leave your own home and having absolutely nothing, just eating whatever you could find on the way. So that was really tough to understand. And it's never really left me from then. And I've always vowed to definitely try and shed light on other refugees, the situations they're going through that weren't as blessed as I was. But I totally believe my family have helped me evolve, and also the community where I've finally resettled.
This is something that I think is really interesting, because a lot of times when we talk about the plight of refugees, and we're talking about things that are happening right now in parts of East and Northern Africa. We had a show the other day about what's going on with people in Somalia. We're going to talk today about Eritrea. And we see refugees as victims. But your life has really taken an amazing turn, and you've been able to accomplish so much. How do you think that plays out for you, that idea of having come from a place where people might have seen you as a victim, but you don't carry yourself as one?
I believe if you feel and you behave, you're a victim, you're going to be a victim. But I don't see anything as a victim in coming from a place where I had no outlet, I had no freedom, and yet there are people that have taken the time to give me that opportunity, to give me a place where I can flourish as a human being, not just a model and a woman. and create, how can you not be? And that's the thing. Not everybody that's a refugee gets that chance. That has to be a fashion model, a runway model. No, there are people that are very humble. Even my sisters, no, they don't want to be a model. They just like, no, that's way too much. But we'll share makeup and girly stuff, and I'll see you later. So they're doctors, they're teachers, they're very proud people that become a part of the community that actually give. So it's not like we're just giving back. And I think that's very important.
Alec, if I can just ask you, you mentioned, being a woman and how it's maybe different. We have someone from our community, Ruwaida Mustafa, saying, are you a feminist? And she wants to know the situation of women who are refugees, their struggles. How can you help women in particular?
I don't know. I just really, from my standpoint, I try and share my story. I'm not anything unique. And if I can make it, I mean, anybody can do it. Whether you want, and as a woman, I'm not a feminist, I don't think. No, not at all. I come from 9 brothers and sisters. I grew up to share, to be a part of the team, and to not just, take and take, but also give back, because that's what it's all about. Shine the torch on the next person, just like how it's been shined on you. Whether we like it or not, we're very blessed and we're very fortunate. And that's because somebody else made it happen. I mean, I would love to sit here and say, oh, I figured it all out because I'm that smart, but it definitely is not. To cut the story short, definitely, like my mother said, even getting into fashion is such a unique business. Not all good. There's also, not so positive sides. Just like any other job, you have bad days, you have rainy days. So it's the same in fashion. And for me, I had to learn it all over. It's not like we had runways in Southern Sudan and wow. So, to just cut the story short, my mother always said, what makes you beautiful as a woman is the woman that you are, and you must celebrate other women. And coming from so many women, definitely that was in within. It's not just beauty here, but beauty have to be here, and it has to be here. And
you're definitely rocking it on all 3 fronts. Absolutely, we appreciate that.
Thank you.
So this is going to be a really good show because we have some personal context from Alec, but we also have some really important comments that have been coming from our online community. And this is very much a show that has been recommended by, we're doing it because of that online community. So remember, this is your show, and you can watch it live and catch all of our previous episodes right on our Facebook page. When you're there, make sure you check out the stories that we're following, but also let them know the stories that you're following, and hopefully we can feature some of them on the show.
So tweeps in Egypt and many more of you around the world are tweeting about the trial of ousted Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak. So many of you, in fact, that the Mubarak trial hashtag was trending globally, as you can see right here on my screen. Now, although Mubarak and his sons denied charges of corruption and complicity in the killing of protesters during the revolutions, many of you expressed shock that he even appeared in court, and others were comparing it to the 2004 trial of Saddam Hussein, including Iyad al-Baghdadi, who says, unlike Saddam, this is a trial by the people and not by a foreign force that imposed itself upon the country. And then also Gail Masengi saying, he takes it one step further, saying the Mubarak trial will go on and on for a long time, but as for whether this strategic Western ally will get hanged, meaning Mubarak, I don't think so, he says. We also have a tweet from inside Egypt from Mona Eshazli, who hosts a famous talk show in Egypt called 10 p.m. She puts it quite simply. She says in Arabic, Ramadan Shahr al-Adl, which means Ramadan is the month of justice. But many question whether justice will ever really be served, including Nora Shalabi, who's tweeting claiming the way in which Mubarak's sons and former Interior Minister Habib al-Adli were greeted during their actual court date was too warmly by the security officials in the courtroom. They said she thinks it's actually quite unsettling. One major criticism of the military's rule since the revolution has been this perceived reluctance to prosecute those responsible for killing protesters during the actual revolution. And in this widely circulated photo, you see the former Interior Minister smiling as he's leaving the courtroom. And the caption beneath it says in Arabic, was he being judged or it looks like perhaps he's being praised. And lastly, we have this cartoon from Carlos Latouf, who has been making many cartoons that have been circulated in Egypt, but also online. And it shows Hosni Mubarak and his lawyer apparently rehearsing for his court appearance. In it, as you can see on the chair, it says in Arabic, Al-Mahami, which says lawyer. He's telling Mubarak, now play the part of the victim. So, speaking of playing parts, we rely on you to play always the role of the informed viewer. So please share your stories that you're following with AJ Stream using the hashtag, and we'll include them on the show. Here are some of the hashtags we are watching.
Depending on who you ask, Eritrea is either a country living under a restrictive government with no freedom of movement and expression, or it's a relatively young nation that's defying Western domination and carving out its own path to self-reliance and independence. So which is it? It's a subject that gets little mainstream media attention, so Eritreans have taken to the net to debate these kinds of issues. One of their community members, one of our community members, Revolt September 1, actually brought this topic to our attention. And so we're doing this subject because Revolt September 1 asked us to. Now, human rights groups say that 3,000 young people try to flee Eritrea every month. And let's take a look at some protests that was recently happening in San Francisco. Because travel both in and out of Eritrea requires a government-issued permit, many hire smugglers to help them get out. Once they've made the dangerous trek across the border, Eritrean refugees may face blackmail, torture, and rape. Some are captured by security forces and sent home. Others are repatriated by neighboring governments. We did have a chance to speak with an activist, Kataza Gondwe, who works primarily with Eritrean refugees, and she had this to say about the situation currently in the country.
Well, Eritrea is one of the most repressive regimes in Africa. A serious human rights abuser, and also seriously violates religious freedom. And on top of that, in terms of the young people, I think everybody, if they could, would leave Eritrea. But the young people in particular have to take part in the military service that's supposed to be 18 months long, and it actually goes on indefinitely. So this is the kind of thing that makes people leave. But on top of that, the military service regime itself is very brutal. And the country as a whole is terribly centralized, very closely monitored, and very, very militarized. There's no real freedom there. There's no press freedom, no independent press. The last political opposition was done away with in 2001. People were locked up in secret detention centers at that time. Revolutionary heroes, they were locked up, and they haven't been seen since. And news has filtered out slowly that some of them may have died. So it's a very brutal and repressive regime, and it's earned the name North Korea of Africa.
Now, of course, many Eritreans disagree with this and say that their president, Isaias Afwerki, is a revolutionary hero who's laying the foundations for a brighter future. Joining us now from Asmara is Rahel Weldeab. She's the head of the Foreign Affairs Department for the National Union of Eritrean Youth and Students, which is the largest civil society organization in Eritrea. Through Facebook, she helps connect young Eritreans in the diaspora to their homeland. Also joining us via Skype is Musi Zenai, chairman of the Indiana chapter of the Eritrean National Commission for Democratic Change. He grew up in Eritrea and worked extensively with the refugee community living in Ethiopia. Welcome both of you to the stream. Rahel, let's start with you since you're in Asmara. Talk to us a little bit about this issue of the national military service. We understand that some are alleging that rather than an 18-month conscription, it can be an indefinite sentence to serve in the military.
Yes, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. When it comes to national service in Eritrea, yes, every citizen is obliged to do 6 months military service and then 1 year of national service. This can be done in different fields, either in the military or in other instances, especially if somebody's completed their studies. They usually do a year service in line ministries. Now, before the border conflict with Ethiopia that took place, or that started in 1998, the military service was, exactly 6 months, and the national service was 1 year. When youth completed their national obligation, they were able to return home. But as the border conflict took place, many of these youth were called again to defend their country. And throughout the 3-year border conflict, yes, they were fighting to defend their country. And then afterwards, because of the stalemate of the peace agreement, they were basically held hostage by the situation to continue on serving their country.
Now let me get Musi in here, because I understand, Musi, that you also did service in, did national service in Eritrea.
First of all, I would love to thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk on your show. And also I would like to thank the PFDJ regime for being willing for the first time in history to talk with the opposition. When I came to the national service, when the national service was first proclaimed in 1994, everybody was willing to serve the country for a limited period of time. What makes it bad was its endless nature now. It's for indefinite period of time, and it's open-ended. And also, instead of like serving the country, and instead of like, you know, doing development work in the country, the national service participants are serving military generals and coroners. And our sisters are becoming wives of the military generals, and they are just, you know, wasting their young age in there. That's what we don't agree in. I myself had done the national service while I was in Eritrea.
Now, Musi, I'm sorry. That's a very strong allegation. I want to give Rahel a chance to respond. Rahel, I understand you also served. What do you say to Musi's allegation about what's happening to young women in service?
I was able to listen to what Alex said about, or what the responses she talked about in regards to feminism and being a woman, how that might affect, or how conflict situations might affect them. I want to say that those allegations are completely false. I have done my service, both military and national service, and I've never found myself in such a situation, or have I really heard of it. You know, of course, there's still a lot of certain bias against how much a woman can serve her country, but I think it's an honor, and and by serving one's country, especially as a woman, you are able to ensure your rights even more. So, yeah, I don't agree with what he says at all. Wives to military generals, I don't know what he's talking about.
Now, Rahel, we're going to come back to Musi and give him a chance to speak about some points in just a second. But first, we're having a lot of feedback from our online community. So, Ahmed, tell us what people are saying.
Yeah, you know, Musi, maybe I'll put a question to you that's coming in from Teker Benelim. He's saying, why is it so hard to appreciate an African country that's doing everything it can to break the vicious cycle of dependency, presumably from the West? And that's coupled with this tweet from Ternafi saying puppet regimes led countries like Ethiopia, where I think you lived for some time in exile, can't even survive one day by their own. Hence, master-slave relations are not future-oriented. What would you say to that, Musi?
What I would like to say here is, like, you know, we are not like against self-reliance. We are against slavery. What is going on in Eritrea is slavery. A person cannot be in a national service for more than a decade without no salary. That's what we are just talking about. This is a forced labor. This is a slavery. Our people are...
Okay, Musi, we've lost your audio there. I'm just going to ask you to stop for a second. Let's give our tech team a chance to get at this. But let me come to you, Alec, in this point, because now you're South Sudanese. Your country has just gotten its independence.
Right.
You know, how do you think a country should think about these issues of self-reliance or the ability to collaborate with other nations?
Oh, wow. Where do I start? like I said earlier, you know, we've learned that fire and fire doesn't solve anything. So there has to be another solution. Obviously, what we've been doing hasn't worked, you know, and we're not going anywhere. And we believe in the same thing. So I think not unless we put our differences aside and not fight each other and not, you know, say, well, I'm right and you're wrong. There has to be a common ground. And I think until we can reach that place, and we don't have to leave it until it's way too late for us to be able to disagree and agree. I think not until then that we can really start to unify, and then we'll start to really make better choices.
I mean, it seems like the region, though, this eastern and northern part of Africa is really facing a lot. You look at what's happening with the Sudan and the partition, then you look at what's happening in Eritrea and Ethiopia, you look at the challenges facing Somalia. I mean, it seems like there is a lot of question as to what the potential future of the region could be.
Well, and a lot of people are referring, I should say online, but even, you know, publicly, that, you know, calling Eritrea Africa's North Korea. We have a Nephi123 saying, do you agree when they say Eritrea is the North Korea of Africa because of its isolationist policies?
Well, to that point, let's actually get Rahel on, because I think we've still got her. Rahel, that allegation you've just heard from Ahmed, how would you respond to it?
Yes, very much. Different media channels like to portray Eritrea as an isolated country, but this is not true. Although there are certain forces that are trying to undermine Eritrea's sovereignty, also denying that the voice of the Eritrean people be heard, especially in different forums such as the UN Security Council.
Rahel, forgive me for interrupting, but you said it's not true dismissively, but we have, you know, a tweet from Gutmang saying Eritrea hasn't had great relations with other nations. Who are its main allies today? We know that they get weapons from Bulgaria and Ukraine, but who are its allies if it's not true?
I don't want to talk about, you can talk about who's our allies. First and foremost, I would like to say that the Eritrean people, especially those that are in the diaspora, are first and foremost their allies, their ambassadors. If Eritrea was such an isolated country, then why do we have so many people visiting the country? Why are we engaging? Well, I don't want to talk in terms of like what the government is doing or the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but I can talk in terms of my own organization. We have great relations with youth and student organizations from all over the Horn of Africa, throughout different parts of Africa and other parts of the world as well.
Rahel, just on that same point, we understand that since 2001, the free press was shut down in Eritrea. Is this true? And if so, how do you have a nation that is purportedly free if you do not have freedom of expression?
Yes, in 2001, due to the political crisis that happened at the time, mind you, this was just 1 year after the ceasefire of the border conflict. What might be traditionally known as freedom of press or different newspapers have been closed down. But I don't think we should limit the freedom of expression just through these newspapers. The people are able to express themselves in different forums, and there are different ways that different organizations, different groups are able to express themselves. They are able to write through the national newsletters. They have their own magazines. And more importantly, we have other traditional ways of communicating amongst ourselves, among the people within Eritrea.
So now there's a lot of, I'm going to ask you to hold there, Rahel, because there's a lot of commentary coming online, but we're going to take this conversation to the website real quick. I don't think we have time for another comment, or another question, but let's see if we can get another comment.
Yeah, we do have one comment from Eri Revolt Sept 1, who's saying, you know, the country has no constitution, it has no independent judiciary, and no elected lawmakers, so just wanting to make that point.
Okay, so Rahel, we were going to want to get your thoughts on that, and we're going to get Musi back online as well to give his experience as an actual refugee escaping from Eritrea. Alec, it has been an honor to have you on. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's been a pleasure.
Ahmed, you've been great. If you want to continue this conversation, you can join us on our website, stream.aljazeera.com. As always, use the hashtag AJStream to join the conversation. We will see you right now online.